Bueno, pues muy buenos días para todos. Nosotros les damos la bienvenida al Encuentro Técnico de la Construcción. Esta será una semana de eventos simultáneos con espacio para la conexión, el conocimiento y los negocios. Estamos transmitiendo en vivo por el stage virtual de la plataforma del evento y por el canal de YouTube de Camacol Antioquia, un ciclo de conferencias sobre temas relacionados con la búsqueda de las mejores prácticas en los procesos constructivos. Contaremos con diferentes expositores nacionales e internacionales que nos actualizarán en temas técnicos y de innovación en la industria de la construcción. Nosotros le damos un saludo muy especial hoy a nuestras empresas patrocinadoras Corona, Cementos Argos y Eternit. A ellos muchísimas gracias. Recuerden que en el stage virtual del evento encontrarán la muestra comercial con más de 20 stands, toda la programación académica con más de 40 conferencistas y además podrán agendar citas de negocios con las empresas participantes. Es muy importante que estén atentos a estas citas, aceptarlas y rechazarlas según su disponibilidad y conectarse a la hora agendada. A continuación, entonces, iniciamos con la conferencia Adhesivos epóxicos, anclajes y ensayos en enclajes, a cargo de Jorge Mario Villegas Estrada. Él es ingeniero civil de la Universidad Escuela de Ingeniería de Antioquia, actualmente es el gerente de Ideas Civiles. Les informamos que al final de esta charla, si ustedes tienen preguntas o dudas, las pueden incluir en nuestro chat y ahí estaremos con nuestro invitado si tenemos un poco de tiempo para responderlas. Doctor Jorge Mario, ingeniero Jorge Mario Villegas Estrada, bienvenido entonces a este espacio.
en todo el mundo que muestran la convergencia de los modelos de diseño y prefabricación en operación. Amy fue designada por la Autoridad de Edificación y Construcción del Gobierno de Singapur como experta internacional para crear su hoja de ruta de productividad, de diseño y de construcción. Su liderazgo intelectual y tenacidad liderado junto con el gobierno y de la industria resultó como un cambio en innovación sin precedentes, catapultando a Singapur al reconocimiento mundial en el espacio de construcción industrializada. Ella es graduada de la Universidad de Florida y exalumna de Harvard Business School. Les informamos que al final de esta charla tendremos un espacio de preguntas y respuestas, por eso los invitamos a escribirnos sus inquietudes y comentarios a través del chat. Amy, bienvenida y nos disculpa por favor nuevamente este lapsus en términos de tecnología que tenemos en este momento.
It's perfect, it's okay. Es perfecto.
Adelante.
Okay, thank you, muchas gracias. Y thank you so much. Mi español es muy mal, so I will only speak in English today. Un momento, por favor. As your host mentioned, my name is Amy Marks, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about industrialized construction. I'd like to thank the wonderful sponsors of the event, as well as our hosts, Camacol, for having me today. I'm calling you today from Napa, California, as I am preparing for some meetings today, and I thought that this was a very important conference, as my heart belongs in many of the countries in Latin America. So I thought this was important for me to join you, especially in Colombia. So thank you so much. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can achieve new things, new possible things in industrialized construction with lots of metrics and conversations from around the world that are happening today, not just in the future. Our hostess was very kind and talked a lot about me. And I think I'm going to skip maybe this slide, but a little bit about me is that I've worked all over the world in many different roles. And I think the thing to remember is that anything is possible. Everything is happening. Things are changing rapidly, even from before the pandemic till now. So you'll see there's a lot of information today, and I'm happy to follow up with any of you about any questions you might have in the question and answer session at the end. In English, there are a lot of words to describe what I do for a living. Here are some of them represented on the screen. And because there are so many words in English, it gets very confusing around the world when we start talking about industrialized construction. So today, in the beginning, I'm going to start with very simple definitions so that everybody understands the words and we can all start speaking the same language, even though I'm speaking English and you're mostly speaking English and Spanish. So, but let's try to get on the same language of industrialized construction. The definition for industrialized construction is the application of manufacturing techniques to the built environment. Now, I don't know in the audience how many of you are architects, how many of you are general contractors, how many of you are subcontractors, but this definition applies to all of you because it's not just about the actual physical construction to apply those manufacturing techniques. It's going to be about the conceptualization from owners and what they need and requirements to the designers who are designing for those buildings, and all the way down through our contractors and operators of those buildings that we want to apply these manufacturing techniques. So I am trained in lean manufacturing. And in lean manufacturing, there is a house that some say Toyota built because they were the leaders in lean manufacturing. This is the house that industrialized construction built. And I thought that we would use that to talk a little bit about some of the definitions. At the foundation of our house, we have both process and technology enablers. On the technology side, you'll see things like the cloud, our Autodesk construction cloud, and our project management software lives in the cloud. And we've now recognized, specifically through the pandemic, how important it is for that data to live in the cloud and not on our desktops, so that all participants in projects can have access to things, and that the data can be safe in the cloud when we need to access that data. IoT sensors and the way in which that will change the world of the built environment is very important for industrialized construction. As we look at pieces and parts of the building as products, and we attach IoT sensors to those prefabricated assemblies, those productized assemblies, that IoT sensor is going to give us data about construction for big data and analytics that we've never had before. So it's very important that we recognize those technology enablers, specifically paired with assemblies, how important that information and that data is going to become to all of us in the future and for right now. On the process enabling side, we have lean manufacturing, because we don't want to just make assemblies or products like we make them on site, but inside. We truly want to become manufacturers. And building information modeling. For those of you who buy our product and utilize Revit, that's very important, because we want to be able to envision these pieces and parts in a multi-dimensional way. But I'm adding DFMA to that multi-dimension. And I don't mean design anymore for manufacturing and assembly. I mean the data for that. It's very important we recognize that DFMA, although people will say that it's for design, in truth, it's about data. And as you move up in the house to the physical pieces and parts of prefabrication, we start with things like advanced building products. Products that enable less drying time, less curing time, less hot work, welding, anything that comes from a manufacturer that's been processed in the manufacturing facility to create better flow on the job site, less labor, less waiting. That's really an advanced building product. Things like single trade assemblies are next, and those are simple assemblies that come from either manufacturers or subcontractors. Things like electrical assemblies or plumbing assemblies, or even a light gauge panel wall frame, which I know in Colombia you have many companies doing some of these assemblies. In the prefabrication continuum next, you have multi-trade assemblies. These are more complex than the single trade partners, and they are usually heavy in mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, as well as some structure. They don't always have to have structure, but in order to transport many of these multi-trade assemblies, there is some sort of temporary or permanent structure in place. Those three things on the continuum go inside a building. The next thing you'll see is a volumetric module, which some of those go inside of a module, and also we may see modules that become the structure of the building, that are literally stacked on top of one another or inserted on top of the roof or inside the building, but those volumetric modules tend to be the structure of the building itself. Not one of these is more important than another. In fact, you have to think of these as a toolkit to utilize at the right time. Volumetric modules are not at the top of a hierarchy. They are just another tool in your toolkit. In fact, much of the prefabrication done today, although we see a lot in the newspaper about volumetric modules, I should say news, there's no more newspapers. The majority of prefabrication is actually being done in single trade and multi-trade assemblies. And part of our house is also the advanced building methodologies, like robotics and automation, that we need the data in order to make sure the design incorporates that, as well as things like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, which is also very important to our future as we want to make sure we can build things on that continuum in the most productive way. Why is this happening today? Why am I here talking about industrialized construction? In our world, we have seen convergence happening for many years. You've seen technology converge. I always say, my phone is no longer my phone. It's my phone, it's my computer, it's my map when I'm driving. It's a lot of different things because technology has really converged. The process of how we conceptualize, design, and make our buildings has also converged. I'm noticing my subtitles have stopped. Let's make sure it works. I've noticed that process converges. Here we go. It's no longer separate silos. And when it stays in separate silos, it's not the most productive. So we've seen that process in design, making, and operating has also converged. Because of that, we've actually seen entire industries converge. Many of you who were contractors are now engaging in manufacturing activities. And that means your business model has probably changed. So that business model convergence you see there is very important because the data you needed when you were in one silo is not the same data you need if you move across those silos. And everything becomes more important, especially digitization and having access to that data, making sure it's not on paper and that it's in the cloud and that we're able to access those things. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about how companies transform in the world. I'm going to go quickly over this in the beginning, but we will revisit this at the end. Many of the companies I work with around the world want certain outcomes. They want end states like certainty around the data, or they want to win new business, or they want to make sure that their job sites are safe and that they are reducing their business risk. Whatever the outcome that you're looking for, I always say to my daughter, who's turning 13 this week, it's not enough just to want something. You have to have a strategy for how to get it. Most companies fall down on that part. They fail at the strategy part. And they think that the same techniques they use today are going to get them to the place they want to be tomorrow. And unfortunately, that's not true. If you want different results, you first have to start at the foundation. You need a culture and you need to assess your skills and your tools and your technology to make sure that you can support the change in your organization that's required for those outcomes for the new possible. It's very important that you assess this and understand where you need to spend your time foundationally to make sure you can get to the next steps. Technology is one of the most important things aside from culture on that list, because again, you're going to want to learn from some of the data and understand how the tools are being used and what skills are there. So you want to make sure you assess these foundational skills and tools and your technology to make sure you have the right systems architecture to gather that information. Also, productization, which might be a new word for some of you, is very important. It's not just about the physical product like a wall panel or a bathroom pod. It's about the data and how we look at that piece, that physical piece, and how do we actually make a productized workflow, a repeatable, improvable workflow so we can drive data reusability. Only then can you digitize those workflows to enable them to be automated and connected, to remove steps from them, to make them faster, to have less people touching them, and connect them to other processes that have been productized. We do that because we want to connect them in a platform thinking that's really enabled by the cloud so everyone can access the data. And you have to be thinking connection all the time. Unfortunately, most of the data that many companies collect is after the fact. And so I'm going to be talking to you about connecting things in front of lots of the decisions you make so you can be more predictive about the decisions you make. That's the benefit of truly working your way through this framework to make sure you can optimize things like generative design or digital twins or industrialized construction, none of which can truly be utilized to its potential unless you take the first 4 steps. And we're doing this really to create and achieve circularity. We want to see digital and physical reuse. I'm sure many of you are architects listening. Every time you draw something that will never be built, every time we create an iterative process, we are creating digital waste. That digital waste exponentially leads to physical waste in our environment, and we don't have the time, the people, in our ecosystem for waste anymore. We have to stop both digital and physical waste and start reutilizing things. I always say to my virtual design and construction leads, if I could judge you on one thing and one thing only at your job, it would be how many things do you never have to draw again because you've already captured that data once and you're able to reuse it. That's very important. Why is that important? Well, a couple of years ago, McKinsey, a big consulting firm, did a worldwide study, and they said that 45% of the $14 trillion ecosystem we're all a part of is going to move towards the industrialized construction definitions that I just described. On this chart, if you see yourself at the top in one of those categories, and underneath you see there is red, that's not good. You are not, as we say, winning. You are in the losing category of value. They're using the terminology offsite construction as I use the words prefabrication. Anyone there that is prefabricating, you will see that they have a significant gain as well as some machinery and manufacturing. And it's no surprise as we focus more on data that the technology spend, although tiny, actually doubles. The other thing you should note is that in the corner, in turquoise, there is additional value up for grabs as we say, that's available if you get good at this new world that's happening right now. What do we know about the the current state? Well, in this source from the Lean Construction Institute, they talk to a lot of big owners about their projects and also their contractors and architects. And they ask them to rate their projects. I don't think it's surprising that we know that our cash for chaos ecosystem, where we draw things that are getting paid for that never get built, or we're estimating things that will actually never get built, or we're going out to multiple companies for bids that will never win jobs. And we have people making stuff that's not the most efficient way because they were never, that data never got to the front of the process. It's not surprising that in the orange, almost 50% of typical projects are over budget and 61% are late. But what is most surprising is that those companies that said our best projects ever, ones that we would say are our best projects ever, 17% of those are still over budget and 21% of those are late. That's unacceptable. We should make sure that we understand even the best projects that people are saying are still late and over budget. We have to close that productivity gap. We have to make sure we can be better. In the future, we don't have the resources any longer to continue this waste. And so what's happening now is there's a lot of pressure in the world going on, even with COVID, as things have accelerated a lot of this convergence. And you're seeing big owners that have large global programs or large geographic programs in your country. They're asking for industrialized construction. Governments all over the world are requiring it now and incentivizing it, not just Singapore, but places in China, the UK, Australia, the US, Latin America. There's a lot of programs now, government-wise, that are incentivizing this. And they're recognizing it's tied to sustainability as well as the economic viability of their countries. And we're seeing a lot of global proof points all over the news. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I try to report on as many as I see in our ecosystem going on. But you're seeing subcontractors who have been fabricating in their shops for many years see value. And we do see a lot of news about small companies that are successful at doing things that big companies are not doing yet or are, getting on a journey to provide. And most importantly, we're seeing lower barriers to adoption. One of those things is the fact that I'm able to come to you from California, in Colombia, and speak in English and teach you in Spanish at the same time. It's amazing how we have become a global economy. But unfortunately, that comes at a price, and it's squeezing the main personas of general contractors and architects and engineers who are struggling to learn how to incorporate these into their designs and actually execute them on site. And what happens when you have pressure is that convergence happens again. You see a blurring of the lines of business models, where most of the general contractors I know in the world, the bigger ones, are now owning fabrication shops. Architects are also moving to own their own fabrication shops, and owners as well, who have decided they're not going to wait for the ecosystem. They're either opening up shops or they're partnering directly with manufacturers and skipping over the architects and general contractors, creating pieces and parts in their own playbooks. And that's happening every day in every country that I know. That pressure. I'm sure many of you feel it already. So let's talk quickly about what most people call design for manufacturing and assembly. It's really there in order to reduce cycle time and labor and material costs. And it's described as a design methodology to enable and optimize prefabrication, but not just on the factory floor, but also in assembling these pieces and parts. Here's the problem, and I'm happy to take any questions from the audience about this. Most of the architects, almost all of them that I know in the world, even the best ones, don't know how every piece and part is manufactured or assembled down to the fastener level detail in order to incorporate it correctly in their design up front. Because if you think about it, you would have to multiply the number of pieces and parts in a building by the number of proprietary systems, and there is no human on the planet that would understand all of those rules and principles in their head. And so unfortunately, our answer has been, get the people that make things to the front of the process to inform. Now, last week, I turned 50, and it's impossible to get people to the front of the process if we don't exist anymore on this planet. And if we're not working, and we're losing much of that skill set. So I came to Autodesk to move that data to the front of the process. It's truly about data and enabling the makers of things to inform design. That is most important because we want to apply machine learning and AI and generative design to those things that people are making. But without the data, you can never get there. And we showed that in the transformation framework as well. It's truly going to be and is about the data. So I came to work at Autodesk because most of you speak about projects in a different order than I'm showing here. I like to think of this as, I love to play chess. But in order to play chess, the pieces have to be arranged correctly for you to play chess. Currently, most projects start with the designer and requirements from the owner that are not very specific on how matching those requirements and making things come together. In the world now, many of the owners, the big owners that I work with, that's not acceptable. And so they are creating playbooks with pieces and parts and the understanding of those pieces and parts and who makes those pieces and parts and the data that they want to capture in their playbooks because they want to reuse those over and over again. And then we're seeing productization happen. So we're seeing products being created by subcontractors that are becoming manufacturers and manufacturers that are making larger and larger assemblies. And so you're seeing the world shift towards defining products up front to feed both the owners in their playbooks and to inform the designers. Now, if you're a designer, sometimes you won't love this scenario, but what I'm here to tell you is that this is an important scenario for you because your designs are going to be better informed. You're going to get to spend time on things that you want to spend time on, like the end user experience, instead of drawing wall panels. And then we have our makers that are going to be able to make these things in the most efficient way and assemble them in the most efficient way. Our data platform is built on something called Forge. And our Autodesk Construction Cloud is already in the cloud built on Forge as well. And many of these desktop products that you see potentially in some of those logos that you know, hopefully, some of them are in the cloud like Fusion and others are on your desktop. But Forge and connecting that data is going to be important for your future in understanding how seamless data connection will give you a better end result. And so I came to Autodesk because they had all the chess pieces I wanted to play with to play chess. And this is a little bit of me arranging the chess pieces to make sure that our customers get the data they need and that this is just easier for you. There is a difference between prefabrication and productization. Much of prefabrication happens downstream with some of the information getting up front. However, productization is informing design up front, like the generator you see here on the right. Both of these systems do very similar things, have similar DNA, if you will, but I always say no architect in the world. An architect never wakes up in the morning and decides they're going to redesign the horsepower of a Kohler generator and start making a 217.5 horsepower generator. They design around products. They inform their design with products. Oftentimes, prefabrication is a secondary thought. And so we have to shift away from prefabrication and move towards productization to better inform our designers. We have to stop making unique, bespoke snowflakes all the time. You cannot get data unless you productize, unless you can repeat things, unless you can reuse things. So snowflakes are a killer in our world for productivity and for efficiency. So in order to think about that, if you think about changing from prefabrication to productization, it's a mindset change. We're moving away from one-time initial ad hoc applications of something. You could prefab something once or maybe a couple of times it looks sort of similar. But until you define what products are and you're able to manage those products and the workflows, only then can you actually optimize them to be utilized across many projects, that one particular product. That is truly going to and does unlock the benefits of industrialized construction. You have to change your mindset. And now, if there was an architect in the room, usually they ask me, but doesn't that mean every building will look the same? And the answer is no. The answer is no, because there are many pieces and parts in that building that could be arranged differently, and not all of them have to be productized. Some things can be bespoke and arranged differently every time to make infinite possibilities. So in the United States, there's, as an example, there's a sound system I can buy called Sonos. I think you can buy it there in Colombia as well. And anyone can go online and just, look at the products they have for my home and sound system, and you can buy them and they look like everybody else's and they're all the same, just like that gray building. However, you can also go to a consultant in my town who does the art of sound. And that consultant, he or she, says to me, what do you want your sound system to be like? What kind of technology do you want to incorporate into it? What kind of future technology do you want to incorporate into it? What's important to you in how you hear this? Do you want to feel the bass in your chest? Do you want to make sure that music goes on at a certain time of the day with lighting and things that create a better ambiance for you? And after I describe that to my consultants, they create the art of sound in my home, but they don't make amplifiers and they don't create speaker wire. But what it enables them to do is those black speakers you see there, that would never look good in my home. Everything in my home truly is actually white and it all has like little diamonds on it. I love little sparkly things. So I would say to my consultant, I like everything about that, but I don't want those black speakers. And they would say, don't worry, we're going to make those special for you, Amy Marks. They're going to be white and they're going to have little diamonds on them to make them pretty to match your house. And it frees that architect up to spend time on the part that they want to, that's important to the end user, because they're not making speaker wire and because they're not designing an amplifier or a record player every single time. You can truly have whatever price point you want to be at with lots of different products, and it really frees up the architect. It's going to make better architecture and enable architects to do better in their buildings. So it's important, though, that you first recognize that each one of these products you define needs a defined workflow. And that workflow must be defined. And right now, because these are new workflows for many of you, you might see that there are some gaps and overlaps in how to track that data and understand what happens to that MEP panel or the precast wall panel or the bathroom pod, whatever that product is. We need to help you understand to track it with your help and what those products are, and define those workflows, productize those workflows so you can use them over and over again and automate them to make them more efficient. This truly is the hard work that is being done right now by many companies. This is not fast. This is not once. This is like building a digital library, one book at a time. And that's okay, because you want to build that book so you never have to build it again, or you only want to improve it as you go through time. And so many of our companies, every time you hear kit of parts or standardizing our work processes, every time I hear those words, I know they are trying to define products and workflows. That's the hard, heavy lifting we need to do. And one of the reasons why it's so important, right above the foundational level, that we productize. At Autodesk, luckily, to fill some of those gaps, we're an open platform. And we have lots of different companies that create connective tissue, if you will, between those portfolio products that many of you use already, like Revit or AutoCAD or Inventor or the Autodesk Construction Cloud or Vault or any of our products. It needs a connective tissue ecosystem to make that data connect. At Autodesk, we do that on the platform. If I can teach you one thing today, anytime someone tells you there is one ring to rule them all, even though I'm La Reina, there's not one ring to rule them all. It's going to be about the products and the platform and the connective tissue that's built with your data and your pieces and parts to make everything easier. So this is an example of connective tissue that we have built in my product team to automate shop drawings. It's 90 seconds, so we'll watch.
Wish you could start fabrication sooner and respond to bids faster? Want to spend less time laboring over production documentation for one-off projects? With Autodesk IC Drawing Automation, you can, by shifting from a project mindset to a product mindset. By connecting building content authored in Revit with fabrication details created in Inventor, you can automatically create the documents you need. Using Autodesk Inventor, you can build parametric models for your engineered-to-order products with key parameters like height and width, which will drive all other product rules. Inventor allows you to define logic for how key parameters influence all other parameters. Then, you can publish the Inventor model to IC Drawing Automation. This sets you up to generate shop drawings, models, and bills of materials automatically and at scale. Here's how. Once an architect sends you a Revit model, you can upload that model to IC Drawing Automation. Then, you can map the key parameters from the Inventor model to the Revit model. IC Drawing Automation uses the values of Revit's parameters to generate all of the documentation you need. Automated models, automated shop drawings, automated bills of materials, so you can move on to bidding, procurement, and fabrication faster. Contact us to learn more. Autodesk, make anything.
And again, this is just connective tissue. So I know we're wrapping up and I'll go fairly quickly. Once you productize in something like Inventor and you inform Revit with that data, imagine removing solid waste from our landfills, because productization is the single most important thing you can do to remove waste from the job sites and in our landfills. Imagine when you don't have to cut and weld and recut and cut a different, all of that process, that waste that becomes physical waste goes away. And that's one of the things that's very important to me coming to Autodesk as I sit on the sustainability VP panel, because that's important. Productization will make that landfill with the construction waste go away. Because truly what we want is data that allows for a circular economy. We want to make sure that we can reuse pieces and parts. Many of my biggest customers in the world are productizing their playbooks right now with reusable pieces and parts so that they can scale and swap technology, but also one day change the building usage as well as reuse some of the pieces and parts in other types of buildings that they may own. So to wrap up, we talked a little bit about each of these steps and how important they are in your transformation. You truly cannot skip any steps. That's the queen of prefab telling you that. That's important. Don't think you can get right to number 5 without going through 1 through 4. You must go through each of these steps and understand the data and collect and learn every step of the way. So my goal in life is to be your resource, to make this data for manufacturing, assembly, and productization easier for you, to connect Autodesk, our platform, with the ecosystem of manufacturers that are out there and our contractors that are becoming manufacturers, and to create a collaborative community and a knowledge base so that after I decide to, go retire, all of this data exists, and many of you retire and decide you want to move to other things, that what you learned stays with the people now that have to do this next. That's very important for all of us. So I can help you in many ways. You've seen me talk today. I can come and speak to many of your companies or governments. We do have products that we can help you with as well that I've shown you a couple. But we also have something called convergence consulting. And that's very important because, as I said, this is not easy. And our consulting group in manufacturing has a special group working with companies that are utilizing industrialized construction. And whether you're a small company or a big company, that's a group at Autodesk. If you reach out to your account representatives and or myself, that we can help you on your journey. And I'm always a resource for all of you. There's also great things at our technology centers. If you can be a virtual resident now of our technology centers, as well as there are many research projects that we look for at Autodesk to be a part of. This is where you can reach me. I'm happy to try to answer any questions today right now, but I often look at my LinkedIn and try to answer questions or connect you with the right people on any of these platforms on social media. And in fact, if you look at Autodesk's YouTube site, you will see a playlist for the Queen of Prefab that has some of our corporate reality show called The Queen of Prefab on YouTube. So make sure you go to Autodesk's YouTube main site and look for the Queen of Prefab playlist. That'll be a lot of fun after this. So I will take any questions that you have. I'm going to leave my presentation up so that when I answer them, you can see my answer in Spanish. I'll leave my contact info up. How's that? So do we have any questions? I can't hear you. Manuela, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry. So we have one question, and it says, one of the problems for digital transformation is the ability of people to accept it. Can you give us some tips to resolve people's resistance?
I think, again, in the transformation framework, culture is the first thing it says. As leaders, we have to make sure that we are hiring the right people that want to learn, want to grow. And if the people at your organization are stopping you from doing that, then either they need to work at a different organization or you need to start judging them and paying them on the criteria that they accept new technology and learn. Because we cannot let a few loud voices hold the world back from change. The other answer I can give you is if you have specific groups that are difficult to deal with, whether that's owners or government or architects, you need to bring in the big guns, as we say. You need to bring in La Reina so I can help you and help you get people to see the vision of the future. People don't change, first of all, unless they're unhappy. You cannot change anyone that's very happy. You have to work with people that see a better way of doing things, that understand there's a vision, and you can show them the first steps to that vision. You need to connect those two things together to change.
Okay, so here is the last one. Is there an Autodesk product to do the detailed planning of the execution of all the activities within the project? I think that the how we are going to do things is one of the biggest problems we have, and planning activities separately, I think it is a mistake.
So, as I mentioned, there's not one product at Autodesk. You need to connect the Autodesk products that you're using together. And if you start with the definition of the products in something like Inventor, and you store them in something like Vault, and you inform your design in Revit, and connect that design information to the Autodesk Construction Cloud with our project management tools and our execution tools, that's truly how you're going to be successful. Now, I didn't mention all the tools. There's plenty of tools on the planning side, including SpaceMaker that we just purchased, as well as things like Origo and Innovise for water treatment centers. Many of these products, the connection is Forge. The connection is having these products talk to one another from start to finish. So you're right. The issue becomes when you enable software that doesn't speak to one another to get in the way. So I'll give you an example. If you used a different project management tool than the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you will have a giant hole in the connective process between design and execution. Because I can tell you, I came to Autodesk to make this possible, and we own all these products, and I showed you we still have to make some connective tissue between them. That's hard. It's impossible if you are working with a different platform and trying to connect two different platforms. That's nearly impossible. So part of that foundation is to pick a platform. Obviously, I work for the Autodesk platform, but to make sure that you can connect those products through your workflows. That's truly the only way. You're right, but there's no one product that's going to do that for you. It's going to be a platform that enables you to do that.
Okay, Amy, so thank you so much. We don't have more questions. Thank you for sharing this space with us. Sorry for the inconvenience. We have some technical problems at the beginning, but I'm pretty sure everyone here enjoyed the conference, thanks to you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And again, please reach out. I'm a resource for all of you, because truly, I believe that we can change the world, and we can change Colombia, and we can change lives by creating a better and more, sustainable world for ourselves.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mil gracias de nuevo a todos ustedes. Gracias por estar conectados. También queremos agradecer especialmente a Autodesk, casa matriz de aplicaciones de plataformas para la construcción, por su acompañamiento en este espacio. A todos los invitamos a acceder y a seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales. Nos encuentran como Camacol Antioquia y como Ferias Camacol. Y también los invitamos a ingresar al sitio web del evento www.etccamacolantioquia.com, a sus citas de negocios y a participar en la agenda académica. Gracias por acompañarnos en este espacio y esperamos que se puedan conectar toda esta semana.